Hello. Hope everyone's doing well. Thought I'd go for a bit of a more professional setup this morning so that you can all see me properly and enjoy the daily read. I hope everyone's washing their hands and I hope everyone's keeping themselves safe and looking out for each other and looking after each other. We're going to start with chapter 41 of the daily read today. We're going to probably read two chapters, 41 and 42. And then we're going to go into some maths, and we're going to go through the thousandths decimal place. And then I'm going to try and do a little art lesson with you. Unfortunately, I won't be able to live stream the art. I can only live stream with my other camera if I get to 1,000 subscribers, it says. So it's up to you. If you want me to live stream a bit more with another camera, I need 1,000 subscribers. At the moment, I've only got 500 and something. Okay, let's get started. I can see there's 10 people watching. That's great. We'll get some more up in a moment. And there is also a little live chat on the side if you have any questions or you want to ask. I can see somebody is watching from another school. Excellent. Zero's condition continued to improve. Stanley slowly peeled an onion. He liked eating them one layer at a time. The water hole was now almost as large as the holes he had dug back in camp. It contained almost 2 feet of murky water. Stanley had dug it all himself. Zero had offered to help, but Stanley thought it better for Zero to save his strength. It was a lot harder to dig in water than it was in a dry lake. Stanley was surprised that he himself hadn't gotten sick, either from the sploosh, the dirty water, or from living on onions. He used to get sick quite a lot back at home. Both boys washed their socks. All their clothes were very dirty, but their socks were definitely the worst. They didn't dip their socks into the hole, afraid to contaminate the water. Instead, they filled the jars and poured the water over their dirty socks. I didn't go to homeless shelters very often, said Zero. Just if the weather was like really bad, I'd have to find someone to pretend to be my mom. If I'd just gone there by myself, they would have asked me a bunch of questions. If they found out I didn't have a mom, they would have made me a ward of the state. What's a ward of the state? Zero smiled. I don't know, but I didn't like the sound of it. A ward is someone who is under somebody else's care. So a ward of the state actually means that the state, the government, the country that you're in would be looking after you. So another word would be, you'd be like an orphan and the state would be your guardian, not a parent or a carer. Stanley remembered Mr. Pendanski telling the warden that Zero was a ward of the state. He wondered if Zero knew he'd become one. I liked sleeping outside, said Zero. I used to pretend I was a Cub Scout. I always wanted to be a Cub Scout. I'd see them at the park in their blue uniforms. I was never a Cub Scout, said Stanley. I wasn't good at social stuff like that. Kids made fun of me because I was fat. I like the blue uniforms, said Zero. Maybe I wouldn't have liked being a Cub Scout. Stanley shrugged one shoulder. My mother was once a Girl Scout, said Zero. I thought you said you didn't have a mother. Everybody has to have a mother. Well, yeah, I know that. She said she'd once won a prize for selling the most Girl Scout cookies. Said Zero. Sorry. She was real proud of that. Stanley peeled off another layer of his onion. We always took what we needed, Zero said. When I was little, I didn't even know it was stealing. I don't remember when I found out. But we just took what we needed. We couldn't afford to otherwise. So when I saw the shoes on display in the shelter, I just reached in the glove and took them. Clyde Livingston's shoes? Asked Stanley. I didn't know they were his. I just thought they were somebody's old shoes. It was better to take somebody's old shoes, I thought, than to steal a pair of new ones. I didn't know they were famous. There was a sign, but of course, I couldn't. Then the next thing I know, everybody's making this big deal about how the shoes are missing. It's kind of funny in a way. The whole place was going crazy. And there I was, wearing the shoes. And everyone's running around saying, "What happened to the shoes? The shoes are gone." I just walked out the door. No one noticed me. When I got outside, I ran around the corner and immediately took off the shoes. I put them on top of a parked car. I remember they smelled real bad. "Yeah, those were them," said Stanley. Did they fit you?" "Pretty much." Stanley remembered being surprised at Clyde Livingston's small shoe size. Stanley's shoes were bigger. Clyde Livingston had small, quick feet. Stanley's feet were big and slow. "Kept them," said Zero. "I'd already made..." Ended up getting arrested the next day when I tried to walk out of a shoe store with a new pair of sneakers. If I had just kept those old smelly sneakers, then neither of us would have been here right now. Zero became strong enough to help dig the hole. When he finished, it was over 6 feet deep. He filled the bottom with rocks to help separate the water from the dirt. He was still the best hole digger around. "That's the last hole I will ever dig," he declared, throwing down the shovel. Stanley smiled. He wished it were true, but he knew they had no choice but to eventually return to Camp Green Lake. They couldn't live on onions forever. They had been completely around Big Thumb. It was like a giant sundial. They followed the shade. They were able to see out in all directions. There was no place to go. Bless me. The mountain was surrounded by desert. Zero stared at Big Thumb. "Must have a hole in it," he said, "filled with water." "You think?" "Where else could the water be coming from?" Zero asked. "Water doesn't run uphill." Stanley bit into his onion. It didn't burn his eyes or nose, and in fact, he no longer noticed a particularly strong taste. He remembered when he had first carried Zero up the hill, how the air had smelled bitter. It was the smell of thousands of onions growing and rotting and sprouting. Now, he didn't smell a thing. "How many onions do you think we've eaten?" he asked. Zero shrugged. "I don't even know how long we've been up here." "I'd say about a week," said Stanley. "We've probably eaten each about 20 onions a day. So that's 280 onions," said Zero. Stanley smiled. "I bet we really stink." 2 days later, Stanley lay awake, staring up at the star-filled sky. He was too happy to fall asleep. He knew he had no reason to be happy. He had heard or read somewhere that right before a person freezes to death, he suddenly feels nice and warm. He wondered if perhaps he was experiencing something like that. It occurred to him that he couldn't remember the last time he felt happiness. It wasn't just being sent to Camp Green Lake that made his life miserable. Before that, he'd been unhappy at school, where he had no friends and bullies like Derek Dunn picked on him. No one liked him. And the truth was, he didn't especially like himself. But he liked himself now. He wondered if he was delirious. He looked over at Zero sleeping near him. Zero's face was lit in the starlight, and there was a flower petal in front of his nose that moved back and forth as he breathed. And the petal was drawn up, almost touching his nose. Zero breathed out, and the petal moved towards his chin. It stayed on Zero's face for an amazingly long time before fluttering off to the side. Stanley considered placing it back in front of Zero's nose, but it wouldn't be the same. It seemed that Zero had lived at Camp Green Lake forever. But as Stanley thought about it now, he realized that Zero must have gotten there no more than a month or two before him. Zero was actually arrested a day later, but Stanley's trial kept getting delayed because of baseball. He remembered what Zero had said a few days before. If Zero had just kept the shoes, then neither of them would be here right now. Stanley stared at the glittering night sky. He thought there was no place he would rather be. He was glad Zero put the shoes on the parked car. He was glad they fell from the overpass and hit him on the head. But when the shoes first fell from the sky, he remembered thinking that destiny had struck him. Now he thought so again. It was more than a coincidence. It had to be destiny. Maybe they wouldn't have to return to Camp Green Lake, he thought. Maybe they could make it past the camp and then follow the dirt road back to civilization. They could fill the sack with onions and 3 jars. Sneak into the kitchen, get some. He doubted any counselors were still on guard. Everyone had to think they were dead. Buzzard food. It would mean living the rest of his life as a fugitive. The police would always be after him. At least he could call his parents and tell them he was still alive. But he couldn't go visiting them in case the police were watching his apartment. Although, if everyone thought he was dead, they wouldn't bother to watch the apartment. He would have to somehow get a new identity. Now I'm really thinking crazy, he thought. He wondered if a crazy person wonders if he's crazy. But even as he thought this, an even crazier idea kept popping into his head. He knew it was too crazy to even consider. Still, if he was going to be a fugitive for the rest of his life, it would help to have some money. Perhaps a treasure chest full of money. You're crazy, he told himself. Besides, just because he found a lipstick container with KB on it, that didn't mean there was treasure buried there. It was crazy. It was all part of his crazy feeling of happiness. Or maybe it was destiny. He reached over and shook Zero's arm. Hey, Zero, he whispered. Huh? Zero muttered. Zero, wake up! What? Zero raised his head. What is it? You want to dig one more hole? Stanley asked him. And we're going to stop there. That's stopping at chapter 43. So later on, there will be a little bit of a quiz on those chapters for you to have a go at. And yeah, good luck with it. It's tough. I think we're going to post a PDF version, which is like an online version of the book in case you haven't got it at home. You can read it. We will we'll get that up as well if we can. It might be quite big, quite large. Let's have a look. Some comments. Hey, everyone. Who's online? Zach, I can see you. I can see Farrell. I can see Mrs. Hughes. There we go. Right. Shall we go on to some maths? I think we should. So today's maths is looking at thousandths. So after the decimal point here, let's move these candles out of the way. After the decimal point, you've got your tenths, you've got your hundredths, which is out of 100, out of 10, out of 100, and then you've got your thousandths. Okay, and it actually keeps going, like to infinity. You can keep going and going, but realistically, all we'll need is, in most circumstances, in terms of money, in terms of everyday maths, you're pretty much only going to go up to the thousandths, unless you're creating a recurring number that goes on. So let's have a look at some thousandths work, and let's just recap everything that we've done so far. So just a quick recap before we get started on the worksheet. If we go back to tenths, you'll remember that 0.5, well, you've got no ones, so you've got no holes, and you've got 5 tenths. Now, 5 tenths is also a half, because 5 out of 10 can be simplified down to a half. Okay, we say 0.5, just like that. If we add a tenth, if we add a hundredth, let's just say it's 0.57, then what you've got is 5 tenths, 7 hundredths, which makes 57 hundredths. Okay, the same rules apply as in your tens and your hundreds and your tenths and your hundredths. So I'm waffling on a bit here. Let's just make this really clear. 57 out of 100, that's how many parts you have. You've still got no wholes. What I noticed yesterday is lots of you were converting your fractions or your decimals into the other one. So your decimals were turning into fractions or your fractions were turning into decimals, and you were forgetting about the whole number. So some of you said that 2.57 was 57 hundredths. The 57 hundredths was correct, but you forgot the whole number. It's a mixed number, 2 and 57 hundredths, okay? Don't forget the whole number when you're converting fractions. Hello, Ollie. Ollie's online with us. Welcome to the live stream. I hope that you're all getting something out of this. If not, I hope you're enjoying it at the very least, enjoying me talking to myself, talking to a computer. Right, I'm going to get started. I'm going to turn the camera around to the screen, and we're going to go through the maths work. If you haven't done it yet, do it with me. Pause the video whenever you need to, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I'm going to just move everything around. Give me about 2 minutes, and I'll be with you very soon. Okay, step one. Let's get the camera. There we go. Where can we see that? Shall I bring it a bit closer? There we go. Step two. Get the microphone. Okay. Let's have a look. Give me a thumbs up if you're watching this live. See if you can give a thumbs up emoji in the chat. Let's see who's actually listening. Nope, nobody's listening. Nobody's listening to me. Okay. Right. I'm going to just open up the windows, get some light. Okay. Oh, yeah, thumbs up. That's what we're talking about. Excellent. Okay. So don't forget, you can pause the video now if you need to slow down and if you need to just check anything that we're going through today. So what we're looking at today is thousandths, decimals as thousandths, okay? So let's just look at this example. Tommy is using a base 10 to represent decimals. And what we've got is a whole. We've got tenths. We already know about tenths. We've got hundredths. We already know about hundredths. And we've got thousandths. Okay, so the cubes, the big cube is made up of 1,000 pieces. So you can actually separate that into 1,000 different pieces to show how many little tiny parts you've got. So let's just have a quick look at this. This is the first question, and it asks us what decimals are represented. That word represented always means what is it showing you? Okay, what is the picture showing you? So let's have a look. I'm going to go through the answer. Again, if you haven't done it, make sure you do it before I do. Pause the video. So we know that these are wholes. These are whole chunks of whatever it is, the cube. So I've got 1, 1, 1, 1, and 1. That's 5 altogether. Okay, so I might put a little 5 here. 5 point, because after my decimal point, I'm going to have the parts that are left over. Well, I've got hundredths. So I've got a hundredth, and a hundredth. How many hundredths do I have there? 3. How many tenths do I have? Let's have a look. I've got 2 tenths, and I've got 1 thousandth. Now, you'll notice that they are out of order, okay? If we go back, I'm just going to quickly go back to the example here. Oh, no, sorry. My fault. Did that wrong. This is worth a tenth because you can put 10 of them together. Imagine 10 of them all stacked up. I haven't got my real cubes with me today. 10 of them together would make a whole. So let's go back. Let's do that correctly. This is a really good example of actually making sure that we understand what we're looking at first. If we don't understand what we're looking at, it's going to get us the wrong answer. Okay, let me just check some of the comments first. There we are. I know it's a bit blurry. Sometimes because we're live streaming, it can get a little bit blurry. But hopefully you should be able to see it okay. If you can't see, is that okay? Sometimes you might have to just pause it, let it load, and then you can carry on, and it should be of a higher quality because we are streaming in a higher quality, but maybe it just takes some time. Okay, back to the question. Sorry, guys. So we've got, what did we say? We have one hole, one hole, one hole, one hole, and one hole. That's 5 holes. And then we have a tenth, a tenth, and a tenth. Okay, remember that the tenths look like that. So that's 3 of those. So I'm going to put my 3 in my 10th column. Let me just put a little reminder here. So decimal point, let's get a new color there. We've got our tenths, our hundredths, and now we've got our thousandths. So let's have a look. So we got 5.32, and then 1 little thousandth there, okay? Now I'm able to see. Excellent. Okay, good. I'm glad it's better now, guys. Thank you. Okay, so that number there is 5.321. Remember, it's not 321 because it's not a hundreds, it's not a tens, it's not a ones. They're in the decimal place values. They're in the tenths, hundredths, and thousands. So that number is actually said 5.321. For the next one, how many holes did you count? Easy. 1 big hole there. Put that one. 1 point something. Let's have a look how many tenths we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 1.7. How many hundredths do we have? 1, 2, 3. And how many thousandths do we have? The little tiny pieces there. Well, I can see we've got 4 of them. So that number is easy. 1.734. 1.734. Okay. Question C. How many big cubes? We don't have any. So I know that this number is going to be less than 1. It's 0 point something. How many tenths? 3. How many hundredths? 5. And how many thousandths? 7. 0.357. It goes blurry, not blurry, blurry. Okay. Yeah, if you basically if you've got the sheet up for yourself, you can just follow along with kind of what I'm doing. You should be able to hear me fine, hopefully. So try and follow along as best you can. I know it's really tricky, but just try your best. It is tough, I know. Okay, let's go to the next question. Okay, question 2 asks you to represent, which means show each number using base 10. Now, I don't have any base 10 with me at the moment, and I don't think you do at home, so don't worry about that at the moment. You can't use your cubes. But what you can do is probably, if you want to, you can write each number in its value. So you can partition it, okay? Which is kind of what they've done here. So we can just skip straight ahead to this. So you've got no holes. You've got 5 tenths, 100th, and then the last one is a 2. So what we're going to show, how we're going to write a thousandth is like this: 0.002, because you've got no ones, no tenths, no hundredths, but you've got 2 thousandths. Okay, always coming back to that. Where is my? Always coming back to this. So the number here, let's just get it up. Oh. No ones. What was it? 512. No ones. There's your tenths. There's your hundredths, and your thousandths are there. Okay, so if I got rid of all the other values, just to show you really quickly, if I got rid of all the other values, that's what it looks like. Nothing, 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 and there's your thousandths. 0.002. Okay, just be sure that you're doing that. So for the next one, let's have a look. We've got one whole number. I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer if I can. bit better. Let's see if that works. Is that okay? Okay. One whole. So the one hole's already done for us. What are we going to add to it? Well, let's do our tenths first. Let's do it in order. Make it really simple for ourselves. So I've got 3 tenths. So that's going to be 0.3. The next one, I've got 5 hundredths. So that's 0.05. And the last one, my thousandths, I've got 2 thousandths, just like in the last example. So 0.02. Okay. Now to prove this, if I just grab a flip chart here. So what I can actually do, if I add all these up together, so I've got 1, I've got 0.3. So I'm going to make sure that my 0 goes here because these are my ones. So 0.3. What else did I say I had? I said I had 0.05. And then my thousandths, I had 0.02. 0.002. My fault. I said the wrong thing there. Okay. If I add all those up, I'm just going to get myself a ruler. There's no point in me telling you off for not using a ruler myself. So I'm going to add all these up like that, and let's just see what we get. So I'm always going to start down here with my smallest value in case I've got anything to carry over. Let me just read those comments. Anything going on? You look at the iPad while the sound comes from the PS4. That sounds really clever. How you can separate the two things. Very clever. Very clever indeed. Okay. Let's have a look. Almost as clever as what we're going to do here to prove that 1.352 is when you add all these two. So let's have a look. We got 2 thousandths. Nothing else to add in this column. We've got 5 and 0. Well, that's still going to be 5. We've got 3, 0, and 0. That's easy. Decimal point, decimal point, decimal point. The decimal point stays in the line. Always, always make sure of that. And then you've got your ones. 1, 0, 0. That stays as 1. And there's your proof. You can see that 1 plus 0.3 plus 0.05 plus 0.002, 35. Exactly what we want. Okay? Exactly what we want. Right, the last one. Let's try the last one on our own. This should be easy because if you notice, there are only 2 values there. You've got 2, the whole number. You've got no tenths. You've got no tenths. You've got no hundredths. You've only got 3 thousandths, 0.003. Okay, don't get confused by all the zeros. Take your time. Check ones, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. You've got 3 thousandths. Okay, always go back, pause, rewind if you need to. I'm sure you can do that, and we'll see. Okay, here's a thousand square. Loads and loads of pieces here. There are actually 1,000 parts to this huge square. They're all absolutely tiny. And it's been colored in. Why do you think it's called a thousand square? Do we need to answer that? Do we need to go through that? Come on, why is it called a thousand square? Let's see it in the comments. Let's see it in the comments. This should be the easiest question of the day. Why is this called a thousand square? Type, type, type. Come on, come on, come on. Let's see your answers. I'm going to come back to that one while you're typing. So what fraction of the square has been colored? Well, let's have a look. This is going to be a bit tricky now because there's lots to count. Am I going to count them all individually? I don't think so. I'm going to group them. If I look really carefully, I can see that this across the top is, zoom in a bit. I've got 5 across the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I've got a row here of 20, 20 rows, 5 going across. That's 5 times 20. That's 100 squares in this block here. Okay. Oh, I think it's called a 1,000 square because it has 1,000 squares. You are correct. Easy, isn't it? In fact, you could actually take it one more step further. It's actually called a 1,000 square because it does have 1,000 squares in it. It's made, or it's split up into, it is split into 1,000 parts. Because if you think about it, we're learning about fractions and decimals, and it's all about the parts that you have to make up a whole. So this whole square is split up into 1,000 parts. Okay, right, where were we? We discovered that this was 100. Look at that, nice and big, lovely. Right, so up to here, let's get a nice bright color. Up to here was 100, and then how many extra do I have in this little bit? So I've got 100. Well, I know this is 10, 110, an extra 3. That's 113. So 113. 113 what? Well, it's 113 out of 1,000. 1, 1, 3. 113 out of 1,000. What is that as a decimal? Well, we've got our 3 digits there. Let's have a look. 0. It's not a whole yet. 0.113. The number has ended in the decimal, in the thousandths column, so you know that's correct. Okay. Right, let's have a look at these ones. This should be nice and easy now. We should have this. We know that each column, where the thick line is, I don't know if you can see it very, very clearly in here, but on your sheet, you can see that they're split into hundreds. You know that you've got 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, 100. That makes 1,000. So here we go. Oh. My board doesn't want to work today. There we go. Right. So in this one, if you've got the answer, just use this as a chance to check the answer. Ooh, there we go. Use this as a chance to check the answer. And if you don't have the answer, do it now before I do it. Okay, just to check. So I can see here, I've got a column of 100, a column of 100, and a column of 100. That's going to be, that's going to be my hundredths. Just put that there, just so I can remember. So I've got 100, 100, and 100. And then down here, in this little part, well, I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and an extra 1. So I've got 371. There it is, out of 1,000. Okay, still not got a whole. I've only got 371 parts out of 1,000. As a decimal, what would that be? Well, you all know this now. 0, because I haven't got a whole yet. 371. Okay, nothing changes there. Just 0.371. 371 pieces or parts out of 1,000. Let's go on to question B. This should be nice and easy. I've got a group of 100, group of 100, group of 100, group of 100, group of 100. That's 500. And only here at the bottom, really carefully, if I look, I've got an extra 2. So what should that be? 502 out of 1,000. 502 out of 1,000. As a decimal, that's going to be 0.502. As easy as that. If you're not sure, go back, watch me do it again, go back right to the beginning if you're not sure. Try a few out yourself. Let's do it. Let's try a few out ourselves. Let's get an, there we are, loads of empty space. I'm going to zoom right in, and I'm going to come up with a fraction, just a random fraction. 272 out of 1,000. What is that? What is that as a decimal? Well done. Fazioli, plays. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Hi, Finley Webb. Okay. 272 over 1,000. You should all be writing that as a decimal. 0.272. There it is. There's our tenths, our hundredths, and our thousandths. So it all works nice and easy. Hopefully, once you get that rule, straightforward. We can now apply that to some problem solving. This is going to be really hard for me to do. Probably a bit easier for you because you've got your coloring pencils and you can do this. But I'm going to give it a try. I've got 73 out of 1,000. Now I just need to shade that in to represent that fraction. Okay, 73. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, that's 50. Another 10, that's 60. Another 10, that's 70. I need 73, so I just got an extra 3 to color in. 1, 2, 3. Something like that. Obviously, yours is going to be much, much neater. How would you write it as a decimal? Come on then, Ollie. How would you write that as a decimal? 73 over 1,000. How would you write it as a decimal? I'll give you a clue. It's not going to be 0.73. Let's see who the first person is to write out the decimal. It's not 0.73. Have another think, because it's out of 1,000. It's not out of 100. If you think about it, 0.73. You've got your tenths and you've got your hundredths. So that's 73 hundredths. 0.073, you are correct. Let's check it out. 0, no ones. 0, no tenths. 73, that leaves us in the thousandths column, so we know that that is the correct answer. 73 thousandths. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. 0.302. So I know I've got 3 there. So I'm going to shade in my 3 tenths, because I know that my big bars here are tenths, because I can put 10 of them together to make the full one. So that's going to be, oh, goodness me, very messy, very messy. If there's a fast forward button, but I don't think there is, you're just going to have to suffer with me, my messy shading. So there's my 3 tenths. On there. And then I've got an extra 2 thousandths. Those are those little tiny ones. 1, 2. Something like that. Okay. Again, pause it if you need to. Pause it if you need to. Okay, this one, if you've done this already, great. If you haven't done it, this is how you can do it to make it really, really clear. So you need to draw yourself a place value chart. You can do this really simply by, let me do it on my flip charts. Okay, can you all see the flip chart? No, you can't. Okay, so your place value is something like this. And you only need to do this once, but just make it nice and big like I'm going to do. So let me just get in front of the camera. Hello everyone. Okay. I've got a column for my ones, a column for my tenths, a column for my hundredths, and a column for my thousandths. So I'm just going to label them ones, tenths. This is a great way to check your spelling. Hundredths, so it's like 100, but you've got TH on the end, and the same with tenths and thousandths. Thousandths. There we go. Okay, and what I like to do as well, I just like to put my decimal place on my place value grid, just to make it as clear as possible. So I know that that's where my whole number finishes. So if we go back to the question, I'm just going to try and do this so you can see them both. You Let's see. There we go. So we got 1.372. So 1.372. This is what you need to do on a place value grid. You just need to show me that you understand the value of these numbers. So 1.372. So I've got 1. You might just want to draw a circle or a square. That's the value of the 1. How many tenths do I have? I've got 3. 1, 2, 3. I mean, you could even just write the number 3 if you want to write out the number 1, 3, 7, 2. But if you do it visually, it just kind of helps it stick into your mind a little bit. Hundredths, I've got 7 hundredths, and I've got 2 thousandths. There we go. So basically what I've just done there, 1, 3, 7, 2. Helping me understand that 1.372 can be visualized on my place value. Let's go to the next one. 0.091. Easy peasy. Nothing in the ones, there's just 0 there. Nothing in the tenths because there's nothing there. 9 hundredths, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do you know what I might do? I might just separate these up into the different questions. So that's going to be question A. This is question B. And how many thousandths? Just 1. So that's 0.091. And the last one, question C, 3.542. So I've got 3.542. And you've got your values in the right place. 3.542. Will we learn 10 thousandths? Great question. We will. As in, do you mean thousandths? Yeah, you have got thousandths. Yeah, we can do. There is a place for it. However, if you know how to do this, then you'll know how to do it because it's just you're moving that place value idea along. That's all. It's like if you can add ones, you can add tens. It's the same kind of idea. Okay, we'll look at it though. We can look at it. Okay, let's go back to the screen. We're almost there. So show that 400 over 1,000, 400 thousandths is the same as 0.4. Well, do you know it's the same? I do. If you don't, this is what we need to do. We need to show that they're the same. This is where it comes down to proof. Okay, maths is all about the proof, not about the answer. So 400 thousandths, the same as 0.4. Okay, I'm going to do this with the picture first. I'm going to go into the abstract numbers and what you can do with the numbers, okay? So let's have a look. 400 thousandths. I'm going to color in 400 thousandths. So I know I've got my 100 here. I know I've got my 100 here. And here, and 100 here. Okay. I'm just going to do this as quick as I can, just so you can get a rough idea of where we're at. There we go. Yours is going to be way neater than that, but that's my 400 out of 1,000. And to show that it's 0.4, well, if you imagine this as being split up into, remember this is now, what it's asking us to do is to see this number as no holes and 4 tenths, 4 out of 10. Well, if we imagine, if we split into 10 equal pieces, you might, the board, there's my 4, Okay, let's do an extra 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've got an extra 6 there. We know that 4 tenths and 6 tenths makes the whole 10 tenths. There's my visual proof. 4 tenths has now become 400 thousandths has now become 4 tenths. In terms of the numbers, well, this is really nice. What you can do, let me just write that out again over here. If you want to see that picture, just zoom in, rewind, zoom in, and you can see that. What was I going to do? I've lost my train of thought. I'm going to show you this. Yeah. So 400 over 1,000. Here's your extra proof using just your maths, no pictures. If I divide this and this, the numerator and the denominator, to make them equivalent, if I divide that, let's have a look. If I divide that by 100, and I divide that by 100, look what I get. I get 4 tenths. And 4 tenths, if I turn that into a decimal, is 0.4. No ones, 4 tenths. And there's my proof. I've changed my fraction into an equivalent fraction, and then I've changed it into a decimal, okay? So you can prove it like that as well. You could also, yeah, well done, Ollie. You could also have, it could be 0.400, because there's your 400 thousandths. But really, if there's no value there and there's no value there, you could just call it 0.4, okay? Okay. Bit of problem solving. Nope, no problem solving yet. That's on tomorrow's lesson. So write the numbers that are represented by the place value charts. I'm going to fly through this really quickly. You should already be able to do this. If you haven't, pause the video, do it now, and then we will look at the answers together. Here we go. This number, I know I've got 4 ones, point, and it reminds me there with my decimal point, 4.276. Yes. Next one. 0, because there's nothing there, 0.504. Yep, you've got 3 digits after that decimal place, 3 values. There's nothing in the hundreds. There's nothing in the hundreds. Yeah, always check those values against each other. Make sure you've got them all lined up. Okay, right. That's the maths today. I'm going to finish today's live stream with a bit of a challenge you can do at home that's to do with maths, but it's also to do with shape. Well, shape is maths, isn't it? Of course it is. So I'm going to show you something really cool. I think I might have shown some of you before, but it's just something you can kind of explore at home. Let me get a piece of paper. All you need to do, or a bit of sellotape. And we're going to create something, and I'm going to talk through it now. Okay, let me just rearrange the camera. Okay, there is a, I hope you can all hear me. Let me bring that down. Okay, so there is something really cool, and I'm just going to show it. And it involves paper. It involves an idea or a knowledge of shapes. And it's just a little challenge you can give yourself to kind of work out. So a piece of paper has how many sides? 2, obviously. There's the first side, and there's the other side. Okay? What I'm going to do, and you can do this at home if you want to, I'm just going to cut a thin strip of paper. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a shape that only has one side. Okay? Now, if you just think about this with me, a piece of paper has 2 sides. I'm going to create a shape that has one side. If you want to try and figure this out before I do it, by all means, have a little go. I'm just going to just even this out a little bit, just to make it a bit neater. Okay. So here's your strip of paper, 2 sides. Here's my one side. Turn it over, and there's the other side. The sides don't join together. They're just 2 separate sides. What you can do, if you fold it in half, not in half, if you make a loop out of it and just hold it together, you've made a ring. How many sides does the ring have? Well, it has a side that goes around the outside. You can do this at home and you can just check. And it also has a side that goes around the inside. So it still has 2 sides, just an average ring shape. Okay. You can do something really clever here, and it's scientifically amazing, because what you can do before you connect your ring, take one end and just twist it half, just twist it around and then do it. And I'm just going to glue these 2 pieces together. Do you know what? Let me bring this closer. There we go. Okay. So, just to recap, if I fold it over into a ring, I have 2 sides. I have an inside and an outside. If I bring it together, turn one over and just glue them together. Just put a little bit of glue on this side like this. Just glue that together like that. Always put your lids on your glue. Always. Okay. Okay, so here is my new ring shape. And you'll notice it's a bit skewed. It's a bit deformed. And that's because I've twisted the one side and glued it together. What I have now created is called a Mobius strip, or a Mobius ring, some people call it. And it's a very unique shape. It's a 3D shape. I can hold it. It sticks out. It's got a 3-dimensional form, but it only has one side. Okay, and you can prove this just like this. I don't know why I find this so fascinating, but it genuinely is. It genuinely is amazing. And if you find it amazing too, do comment and let me know. So here's my shape. I don't know if you can all see it. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to start. I'm going to do 2 different versions just to prove it. So here's my first strip, which is just a normal ring. Just leave a comment if you've seen this already. If you've seen something like this already, or if this is new to you. So here's my first strip. Here's my normal ring, and here's my Mobius strip. My Mobius ring and my normal ring. The normal ring, if I just go around the outside, I'm just going to flatten it so I can just draw on it. If I go around the outside, I'm just going to draw a line over the side that I'm on, which is the outside. And there we are. I've got to the end. My pen line is joined up. There's my one side I've colored in. The line goes all the way around. The inside, I don't know if you can see, the inside I still haven't drawn on. So I'm going to go around now and just draw on the inside. There's my 2-sided shape. Just by giving it a simple twist, I've now made a one-sided shape. Check this out. So I'm going to start on the outside here. And I'm going to draw, try and do this as close as I can. I'm going to draw along the outside of the shape. And this is all I'm doing here is just proving that I've made a shape, a 3D shape with one side. Now, it starts to go a bit funny here. As I'm drawing on it, I have to like kind of twist it a little bit just to get in there. Going all the way around. I still haven't got to the end yet. Still drawing around. I'm still going around. Now, I notice I've been doing this for twice as long as the other one. I mean, something strange is happening. And I've got to the end. There we go. I just drew a continuous line. And that line I can just keep spinning that round in my fingers forever. Because the inside, as Ollie just said, the inside has gone outside, and then the outside goes inside. You have just created a 3D shape with one surface. Now it goes one step further. Check this out. If I take this shape, and if I take my normal ring, here's my normal ring with two sides, just a normal ring shape. If I cut it in half along that line that I drew, what do you think I'm going to have? I think I've shown some of you this before. I have two rings because I just cut the ring in half. Okay. Standard. If I cut the Mobius ring in half in the same way, what will happen? Let's do it. Ready? So I'm going to cut along my line, just along the middle of the strip, like this. What do you think will happen? I'm going to keep going all the way around. And when I get to the end, oh, there we go. You still have one hoop. You've just cut in half, but you still have one continuous hoop. It's just magic, isn't it? It's unbelievable. Well, it is believable because I've just proved it. But you can now, so you can cut something in half and still have one. It's brilliant. Let's see what happens if I cut it in half again. What do you think will happen? So it's a bit harder now because I'm a little bit. So I'm going to open it up. I love the emojis. Love it. You've really conveyed your astonishment there. I'm cutting this now in half. I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but I'm going all the way around really carefully. And I'm cutting my Mobius strip, my Mobius ring in half again for the second time. Even more emojis. Goodness me. Okay, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Oh, I'm still not finished. It's really long. What is going to happen to my Mobius strip now? I'm nearly there. Done. I've cut through it for the second time. Are you ready? This time it's even weirder. So now what I've done, I've actually got two separate shapes, but they are connected. I don't know if you can see this. They're connected in a way that I cannot separate them. So this one in this hand and this one is separate, but they are like knotted together in a way that they cannot be separated unless I break the paper. So have a little play around with it with yourself. If you can, if you're feeling brave enough or accurate enough, try and cut it in half again and see what happens. So you have to cut two different shapes in half. In fact, let's do it now. Why not? We got nothing else to do, have we? Apart from a bit of an art lesson later. So I'm going to try really carefully now to cut this in half again and see what will happen. I've never gone this far, actually. There's only one video that I've seen that's done this. But it's very thin. Too thin. Like the metal rings in a magician trick. Yes. Just like the metal rings in a magician trick. Do you know what we should do? We should do some magic tricks one day as well. We can do magic trick lessons. Not that I'm very good, but I can teach a few simple ones. Maybe one day. Oh, goodness me. Can you believe it? You're just watching You're watching your teacher on a screen cutting up paper. Who'd have thought, eh? Who would have thought? Okay, so my first strip is done. So now I have 3. I've cut the 1 in 2. Let's cut up the second one. Let's see what happens. I don't actually know what happens. No one else commenting? No one else commenting? Ollie, you're doing great. Doing great. Love the comments. Makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself. Right. This is getting really hard. It's really difficult. Okay. You think it's going to be a bigger one? Okay, let's have a look. I think it might be a bit larger, but will it separate them? Because if you remember on the previous step, the 2 rings were connected and inseparable. So let's find out. It's very tricky, very tricky. Dun, dun. I think for the live stream tomorrow, we'll have some music. We'll have some music to start off the live stream. Mrs. Hughes, you have a magician living with you. We'll see what we can do about getting a bit. Oh, yes. Yes, please. Yes, please. I absolutely love watching magicians do tricks. But my sleight of hand is not very good. Okay, I'm getting a bit tangled up here. This could end up being a complete disaster. Oh, it's gone really thin. Okay, and we're there. Right. Okay, let's see what's happened without breaking it. Do you know what? It's actually really, really, really tricky. To figure out what's gone on there. I feel like something's happened, but I don't know what. No, I think I've just made a mess. Okay, try it yourself. See what you can do. That's the end of the Mobius strip demonstration. And it has 2 notepad of 1. Ollie, I don't know what you mean. Larger rings, and it has 2 notepad of 1. Oh, we'll see. We'll see. Right. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to now film a quick little art lesson. We're going to do a little bit of work on using perspective in our drawings. So all you'll need is this. I'm coming back. Okay. All you'll need is a ruler, a pencil. You might need a sharpener to keep your pencil sharp, and you need a piece of paper. It doesn't need to be this big. And I'm going to film a art lesson now, and then I will upload it ready for you all to have a go with. So, see you all very soon. I hope you enjoyed that live stream. It's gone on for, how long has it been? It's been an hour. Great. We did a daily read. We went through some maths, and I will see you again tomorrow live on YouTube. Keep well, keep safe, and see you in a moment for the art. I will post the link once it's uploaded. Remember, if you want me to live stream everything, that's fine, but I need to have 1,000 subscribers because it doesn't let me do it on my phone. It doesn't let me stream on my phone, only on my laptop. Anyway, that's my business side plug done. Have a great, great, great day. It can't be a pen. Ollie, before I go, it can't be a pen because you'll need to be doing very light sketching first. then you go over it with hard. You can go over it with the pen at the end, but you do need a pencil to get your light guidelines. I'll explain all that in the video in a moment. Okay, bye now, everyone.